I know we all wanted to be celebrating today. I'm still wearing my Heat colors, but Miami goes down in game 7. Boston get that dub, and they, not us, are headed to the NBA Finals. Let's talk about it. Oh, it is. It is a Monday episode of Donno Daily here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. My head is still high. I'm holding it as high as I can. It is Donno Daily here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thank you guys so much for coming in, even after painful way to go out last night. Awful start, lethargic start, several minutes to get your first field goal, down 9-1 early, and then the Heat were swimming upstream for the entire game. It looked really ugly at times, and yet you get a big three from Max Strus, the one that did count, not the one that ultimately didn't count, to cut the Heat's deficit down to 2 points. A little over 18 seconds left is when Jimmy Butler pulled up for that three-point attempt that everyone's been debating for the last, 16, 15 hours, however long it's been. We're going to get to everything, guys. We're going to get to what went wrong last night, what went wrong in the series as a whole, and what we do now. And also, I want everyone to remember, well, before you remember something about the Miami Heat, I want you guys to remember that if you're in here right now, whether you're watching us live at 3:06 p.m., we started at 3:05. I thought that would be appropriate. It's 3:06 p.m. live right now. Whether you're watching us in this very moment or you watch us later on via YouTube replay, do us a solid, smash the like button. Smash the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel because the 5 Reasons Sports Network, I'm sure for the next couple of days, we're going to have a lot more Heat coverage. And, as we get closer to free agency, it's really going to ramp up. But, you can also find the best Dolphins coverage, Canes coverage, Marlins, Inter Miami, Formula One. Fight fans can get their combat sports coverage. We're bringing back our combat sports show later on this week. So it's a one-stop shop for everything you need, South Florida sports and otherwise. So big letdowns from this series and really throughout this playoffs as a whole. 3-point shooting is a big one. Best 3-point shooting team in the regular season, 31% in the playoffs, 20% last night. Listen, I know we can spew out what ifs for probably 30 hours straight. If I just want to sit here and not leave my computer and my webcam for 30 straight hours, we can run off all sorts of what ifs and all sorts of excuses. But man, 20% from three last night. If the Heat had shot 25% from three, they might be winning that game, right? Who knows how the complexion of the game might have changed had they not ruled out the Duncan Robinson three. Now, I know if anybody's watching this from Boston, or if anybody, you live in South Florida and you're a Boston Celtics fan, I do know a few of you rats. You're going to watch this and say, look, he's making excuses. Look, he's going to say that the only reason lobster chowder, the only reason why the Heat lost the game, according to that guy, is because the Strus three was overruled. I'm not saying that. And I know, listen, I thought, the Heat got a little bit worse officiating throughout the series, I think it's fair to say. But Boston had some calls go against them. Heat had a lot of calls go against them. The officiating going in all directions really was not good throughout the series. And I kind of knew we were in trouble when I saw Scott Foster was leading the crew last night. But, maybe the Heat would have lost the game anyway. But taking away the Max Strus three, and I know that Spo's bigger issue was the procedure with which they took it away with that huge gap. It was like 3 minutes later. I get that there's frustration there, but still, you watch the replay, you watch the super slow-mo, you watch the stills. I don't think he was out. I don't. Now, it's one of those things where it was so close. I'm sure you can make an argument on either side of it. Like you can say, "Oh, wait, look, his foot was actually, it was less than a millimeter off the line, so it was still touching the line." The point being, that was so ticky tack. Like to count the three and then to review it with a fine tooth comb like that, where I didn't even see conclusive evidence that he was out, to then overrule it. I don't want to spend all day with this because you can't have it back. And that was early third quarter, so the Heat very well could have still lost the basketball game. So I'm not going to waste too much of my breath talking about that. But yeah, the 3-point shooting or lack thereof, the later we got in the playoffs, that was a big what if. And 20% from three was not good enough last night. Another big what if are if we just could have had slightly healthier bodies. I know the Celtics dealt with injuries too. Both teams had to fight through that. Both teams had to fight through adversity. But man, the cheap shot from Peyton Pritchard in game 3 that caused Jimmy Butler to look like a shell in games 4 and 5 from that knee bruise. Yeah. You look at the way Jimmy played games 1, 2 into game 3, game 6 and 7. The guy is a Terminator. Like, I think my greater takeaway from all of this is, before we get back to our what ifs and regrets, so badly I want Jimmy to get a ring. Like, obviously, selfishly, I'm wearing my Heat colors today. Yeah, of course, I want Jimmy to get a ring in Miami, and I believe he wants to finish his career here. It's not going to be on the trading block or anything. Like, I want Pat Riley to find a way to maximize the supporting cast so that Jimmy Butler can win a ring in Miami. Because I do believe, despite what all the national talking heads will say, I strongly believe that Jimmy Butler is good enough and is enough to be the best player on a championship team. I just think he needs more consistent offensive help. I like Bam Adebayo a lot. I don't think he's going anywhere. Like, he's not going to be on the trade. I think, Jimmy is untouchable. Bam is probably untouchable. I think anybody else on the roster, if the right trade package were to come up, I think anybody else could potentially be expendable. And I like Bam a lot. He's a generational type of defensive player, but on the offense, and he was great last night. I don't want to nitpick Bam. Like, Bam and Jimmy, they were enough. Everything else wasn't enough last night. I mean, you look at the splits from yesterday. Jimmy Butler, Herculean game 7 after a Titan-esque game 6, 47 points in game 6 and 35 points. If he just hit that three-pointer, would have had 38 points, potentially a game-winning shot. 35 last night for Jimmy, 25 last night for Bam. And by the way, for Bam, 25 and 11, 35 and 9 for Jimmy. They combined for 60 points. It's like 2/3 of the Heat's points last night. The two of them combined for 60. The supporting cast only gets Miami to 96 last night. So, yeah, all of the injuries, man. All of the injuries, having Jimmy hobbled for a couple of games, big time. Tyler, he tried to give it a go last night. Just not physically well enough. Everybody had been telling. I've never had a pulled groin before, thank God. But a lot of people have said, hey, it's really tough to come back from. That's going to need offseason to really get him right. And the NBA only allows you to take a pregame injection. You cannot take a follow-up injection during the game, and the injections are only good for about an hour and a half. And he wasn't there physically. Kyle Lowry hasn't been there physically all postseason long. I mean, he missed 8 games in the playoffs, Lowry. So you have some what ifs there, no question about it. Now, so those are regrets. And I know Boston has some of those as well, and they still persevered. We're going to be bringing in, by the way, in the next 2 minutes, our guy Brady Hawk, who's going to be joining us at 3:15. People are still debating the Jimmy pull-up jumper with a little over 18 seconds left to try and, I say win the game. I mean, Boston would have still gotten the ball back, but he was going for a game-winning shot there. I think he earned the right to take it. I think Jimmy earned the right to take that shot. I think it's easy to nitpick it afterwards and say he should have driven to the basket. If you try to do that, maybe you get a layup and one, or you get a dunk and one. There's no guarantees to that. I think in that situation, and Jimmy had hit, and I know people thought, oh, Jimmy, very low percentage from pull-up threes. He had hit a pull-up three earlier in the game. And I think Jimmy saw that as an opportunity, as an open look. It wasn't an easy shot, but it was a relatively open shot. He thought he could drain it. And then let's not forget, okay, if you're talking about going for two and not three, then the team that's more beat up and the player that's more beat up, Jimmy played 48 minutes last night. Jimmy didn't get any rest last night. And we know how hard he's been pushing and how, rough shape his knee and his body is in. So I'm sure in the back of Butler's mind, he's thinking, okay, if we get the tie here, we go to overtime and they probably clobber us in overtime and I've got nothing left. Let me go for the win. Like, let me just put the dagger in their heart right now. And the shot was close, man. I really thought that was going in. Like, he startled me a little bit when he took the shot because I wasn't expecting him to pull up there. Like, I was in shock for that split second, but then I thought the shot was going in. And if that shot goes in, it's one of the most legendary postseason shots, certainly in Miami Heat history. And it would have to be up there in that moment in a game 7. That would start making NBA all-time lists as well. And I believe Jimmy Butler earned the right to take that shot. Like, it wasn't Max Strus trying to take that shot or Caleb Martin trying to take that shot in that moment or Kyle Lowry and Kyle Lowry does, have an NBA championship under his belt. But I think Jimmy Butler is the guy who has earned the right to take that shot. And yeah, K Mert says, I thought it was going in as well. Would have been legendary for real. All right. Our next guest is legendary. Brady Hawk from 5reasonsports.com, 5 on the floor, Brady breakdowns. Brady, this is a tough morning for all the Heat fans out there. Let's pick up where I just left off. Anything to add on Jimmy's shot? Did you take issue with the selection there? Do you think he should have approached it differently?
Not at all, actually. I said it right after the game. I said it on Twitter on 5 on the floor last night as well. It's like, it's one of those things where you hit the nail on the head when you said the 48-minute thing. I think that's a good place to start. The fact that he played 48 minutes, you go an extra 5, and a guy has to lead you there, it's just a tough spot to be in. When you go into that shot specifically, you got guys in the backcourt. Yes, Horford's in front of you. Hindsight, we can all sit there and dissect that one play and say he could have drove. But in high leverage situations in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals, that's not the way it works. Like, it's just reactionary, and he was reactionary. He had a good look, and I am living with that shot every day of the week. Like, the ball's in your best player's hands. You just had 47 in Game 6. He has 35 in Game 7. It's like you said, you went through the list of role players. If a role player is taking that shot, I'll look at it differently. But the fact that he's taking that shot, I think you look at the way this game has went, half-court offense was not easy to come by in any capacity. Like, going up immediately and not slowing it down and going for a look, like, that is best-case scenario in my opinion as well. I think the only thing that you can nitpick and say is he should have went to the rim, but I'm still not even there. Like, I think he had to take that shot. Like, I think that's a shot you live with. They are going to live with it. Jimmy said he'd live with it. Spo said he'd live with it. And I definitely would live with that because I just feel like the way the game went, the way Jimmy had it going as a scorer in general, I just don't see a reason to nitpick that exact shot. I think if you want to nitpick something, it's the fact that it's another thing we talked about yesterday was maybe Jimmy not touching the ball possessions prior to that. Like, that's something I would take into more consideration. But that shot specifically, Jimmy Butler's your best player. You put the ball in his hands.
We had another one of those slow starts last night. How do you explain it? Is it more about what Boston takes away from Miami defensively, or is it more about the Heat just for whatever reason not really waking up until, minutes go by in the first quarter?
I'd say the main thing is they definitely deserve credit because they flattened out Miami's offense. But we've seen that throughout the series. They found ways to flatten out Miami's offense. The thing that happened was that they were getting the transition a whole lot in that first quarter. And it was bleeding into their defense because they could not stop them in transition. I think they had 13 transition points in the first quarter. It's just hard to recover from that. Like, you just can't really a game that's two defensive powerhouses that have to be kind of, you want to get it, dumb it down to the half court. If one team's dominating in that transition kind of stat sheet, it's really hard to recover. And that's what we saw. It gets up to 13, they cut it to 8. Then it gets up to 12, and they cut it to 6. It's like that opening stretch restricted them in a lot of ways because they just couldn't get over that one hump. If it was equal, if all things equal, if you take away those transition buckets, you're sitting there pretty nicely. So I think that was the biggest thing. There was defensive lapses because of, I think, partly PJ Tucker was injured. He did not have a great game defensively and on either end, to be honest. I think that hurt them in terms of stopping Boston. But I can't really fault the defense altogether. Like, they held them to 100 points. Like, you're living with that. It was 196. You score a couple more buckets on the offensive end. The free throw misses were a very weird development, but it's also what happens when you're tired. Like, that's the definition of tired legs, is when you just can't make a free throw time and time again. So it just is what it is. I think the start of, we've seen in this series, momentum isn't a thing, but the start of first and third quarters have been so crucial. We've seen that in every single game in this series. And I think that was a tell when they had a kind of the two bad slots and pockets of game was the beginning of the first, beginning of the third. It's, like I said, it's just hard to recover.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up momentum. You and I talked about that on our spot together last week, that like momentum from game to game just didn't really exist in the series. The other bizarre thing about this series was Boston wins 3 out of 4 in Miami. Miami wins 2 out of 3 in Boston. Like,
Crazy.
Home court, I thought, and I think we both did before the series. I think we both picked it to go 7, and I thought game 7 at home would give Miami the edge, and I guess, I don't know, maybe it did. Maybe they would have gotten blown out if it was in Boston game. I don't know, but the road teams did a lot better this series.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain that. Like, 5 wins out of 7 as road wins, like that, it doesn't even make sense, to be honest. I think I not the excuse thing, like not to utilize that, but I think partly the reason that we were saying Heat in 7 is you were kind of assuming health in a lot of ways, and both sides were not healthy. Like that should be said up front. Like, guys like Marcus Smart and Rob Williams were not healthy either. But the fact that you don't have Tyler Hero out there, the fact that you're one of your better defenders and PJ Tucker just does not look right. It's just so hard to characterize, I guess, and predict games in this series. And I guess home crowds don't have that much of a pull when it's just kind of health-based in a lot of ways. And I guess two teams are so good defensively, as I said, it comes down to who's scoring better in the half court. It feels like Boston got that edge for most of the night, but I don't even know how to characterize the fact that there's so many road wins. It really doesn't make sense. But ultimately, they got home court advantage. Like we were talking about all season, that they had to get the 1 seed to have home court advantage. But I guess it's that balance of saying, do you want home court advantage and you have to really fight through it to get that? Or do you want to sit in a lower seed, maybe a little bit of a lower seed, and at least be maybe a little healthier because you rested guys a little bit more?
Oh, that's a great point. And by the way, huge shout out there to Miami Corey. Thank you so much for the super chat. We appreciate the donation to the channel. He says, just want to say thank you, 5 Reasons Sports. Unrivaled coverage of our teams. Bonus, what moves do you think Riley makes with Jimmy's window closing? Well, let's put the pin in the grenade on that, Brady, because I want to circle back to that. I just want to wrap up last night before we start talking about what we do this summer. That way we're not just bouncing all over the place. So something else about last night that created a lot of conversation, and I don't want to sound like I'm using this as an excuse that the Heat lost the game, but do you think taking that Max Strus 3 off was the right decision? I know people also had a problem with just how long it took to take those 3 points off, but even the decision itself, I don't see how you had enough visual evidence to take that 3 away in game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, it did not make much sense. They were reviewing it to check if it was a 2. They weren't checking if his heel was on the line. They were checking if his toe was on the line. And it went back in the other direction and they took it away. I will say it makes no sense to kind of review that in that way, but I have more of a problem with how long it took. Because as a coach, and Eric Spoelstra sitting there coaching a game, and you're sitting there with an 8-point deficit and you're fighting back, and Boston gets to the line, they're about to shoot their free throws. It goes from an 8-point game to a 13-point game immediately. And like that's a hard thing to kind of shift as a coach and try to change your team when you fought all this way to cut it down to an 8-point lead or an 8-point deficit. And now it's 13. And now you're in the same spot you were 10 minutes ago. Like it's just, it's a very weird thing to, I guess, develop as on the court. And I guess you can't spend much time thinking about it because it's on to the next play. It's on to the next timeout or whatever it is. But in hindsight, I won't be the one like saying like that's the reason they lost that review. Yeah. But it just didn't make much sense at the time. Like the fact that you just take a play away from that long ago, like Spoelstra said after the game, they'll probably be one of the case studies for this. And that's what makes it tough. That's what makes it a little bit rough, that you're on the back end of something that has to now be changed in the rule books, that you're not changing, I guess, calls and plays 20 minutes of game time later or real time later. So it was just a weird play overall. The fact they had a couple threes in that game that kept happening after the whistle. Gabe Vincent made 1 3. He had 2 after the whistle in that game. Like it was just a rough go in a lot of the those plays. But that Max Strus 3 specifically, it's hard to say like at the end of a game when they were up 2 and down 2, Jimmy had the ball, and you're saying, oh, they would have been up 1 in this situation if you actually. It's not as easy as saying that, but I think the real problem is in that moment when an 8-point deficit goes to a 13-point game.
Yeah, and not to oh wait, this is the one I wanted to pull up. I want to pull up this message, and I agree. Obviously, it's what can we do now? But he says regarding Strus, I've seen the video. The shadow of his left heel is very evident. He was inbounds. Yeah, you can't have a shadow if there's contact, right? Like by definition, the shadow can. Trust me, I'm a scientist. The shadow can only exist if the heel is not on the. Like, how can you see a shadow of the heel if the heel is on the ground? You at least not from that angle. You wouldn't see the shadow underneath. So listen, I don't want to waste too many people's time talking about this, but it is what it is. I'm a little bit annoyed by it. So okay, the Celtics move on to the NBA Finals. I've already checked out the odds. I've actually already placed a couple of bets. So for those of you who like to fade my picks, you may want to listen to what I've placed and do the opposite, because I know people have won money doing that here. I feel like I got some value, Brady, on Golden State minus 150 to win the series. I actually thought those were better odds than I expected. And so I bet that Golden State minus 150 and Steph Curry even odds for finals MVP. So how do you think the series is going to play out?
I would be right there with you with that. I think the Warriors win this series. I think Boston can flatten them out in a lot of ways that they did Miami. Like, I don't think Warriors are this powerhouse, but I think they're the better team. And I think that we've seen specifically with Heat fans that the Heat, when they get banged up, it's hard to recover from that. And Boston's pretty banged up right now with some of their key role players. And the Warriors have kind of drifted through in a lot of ways, and they're getting guys back actually with guys like Gary Payton. So I like the Warriors in this series. I think it's the opposite of the Miami series. I think it's just a lot of home wins because I think both these teams are just going to be really good at home. But it's hard to say. I think I also think Curry, a Finals MVP, is a really good bet. Like if the Warriors win the Finals, even if he's not like by far the best player, with all the narrative stuff that goes on with that Curry Finals MVP stuff, they'll probably give it to him. But I do think the Warriors win it. Even if I will say, like, it would have, obviously you want Miami to win that Game 7, go to the Finals and everything like that. But it would have been tough the way that they looked right now, the way the injuries have gone. Like, I hate coming back to the injuries time and time again. But heading into the Finals against that Warriors team that run you to death on their offensive end and just fly you around, and you have Jimmy Butler coming off a 48-minute Game 7, like, it just would have been a rough go for this Heat team, even if they were to make it, just being so banged up.
Sorry if I looked distracted. I could hear my phone digging, and I'm like, "Where?" I didn't know where it was. I was like, "Where is it?" It was like, but behind a hat over here on my the part of my table that's behind my camera that nobody can see is a huge mess, an absolute mess. Okay, so let's talk about the future, and let me bring up this message here again, the super chat from Miami Corey, who adds at the end of it, "What moves do you think Riley makes with Jimmy's window closing?" And like, on the one hand, it's like this team was so close with the current group. So it's like, I don't want to overreact when they had some bad injury luck, including Jimmy himself. So I don't want to like overreact and say, oh, this roster is fatally flawed. But I also know Pat Riley, and Pat Riley, especially, after, you get a team that gets kind of close, like the Heat just did, and they can't get over the finish line. He tends to tinker a lot. Like, he tinkered a lot after 2005 when they got to the Eastern Conference Finals, and then the next year they win a championship. So what do you think Riley does, and how much help do you think Jimmy Butler needs?
Yeah, I don't think you want to overreact, but I think you also don't want to be passive and be one of those teams like when you came out of the bubble and say you want to run it back because they were so close. We've seen that as much as you were that close, other teams are getting better, and I think that's what we learned. Guys like Chris Middleton are coming back for the Bucks. Other guys are going to acquire certain things. Pieces are going to move around. What he's going to do, I think we've all learned that the Jimmy Butler not being able to be the best player on your championship team narrative is just a horrible take. Like, I really, that's kind of what I come down on watching this playoff run, is that he just needs valuable help to get him over the finish line because he can lead you there. I think the thing about that is maybe he won't be I think he will be the best player no matter if they were to make a trade. But the flexibility they have is upon certain guys. Like as much as we keep coming back to the same thing all year that everybody throws the same trade piece out there, Tyler Hero's the guy along with like a Duncan Robinson contract and maybe if like a pick swap or something. Those are the keys to get you the certain pieces. And I just don't know. They're not just going to make a trade for the sake of it. And I know some people just want to see that just for nothing. But the same names I think that are out there, the Donovan Mitchells, that these two guards that are superstar level, high level offensive guards that can help you in the half court. That just feels like the biggest thing. Like they're going to have the defensive pieces. I think in terms of contract value, they have Gabe Vincent and Max Strus going into next season on minimum contracts. Two guys that were starting in this playoff run for a majority of time. Like that, it's just incredible value to be heading into next season. So you have those flexible contracts, and then you have the pieces like Duncan Robinson, who are like the big numbers to get you those certain guys. So it's going to be hard. I don't know if those guys are going to be available. I feel like there's just so much time, I guess, to talk about this specifically. But I guess that's the outlet. Like they're not going to. I don't think they're opposed to running it back with certain things. Like I think there's a way that you can fix the edges a little bit because we've seen Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo just stepped up in Game 7. The role players were the guys that didn't show up for them.
Yep.
Maybe you can get some of those guys. I think it's a very possible thing, and that could put you over the edge. But if it is the big time move, there's a certain number of players. I think there's a limited number of players that you make that move for, and I just don't know if they'll be available.
Would you bring back Oladipo and like how much is he going to cost? Because like I don't know how much he actually raised his value because he missed like 90% of the season and he had a handful of good games in the playoffs. So like how much is he even worth now? I have no idea.
I really have no idea either. Like we were talking about, I remember when he was coming back that these like worse teams would throw a lot of money at him, but I'm not sure I'm there yet. Like I just don't see that happening. Like the bad teams throwing money at somebody feels like Gabe Vincent after this next season. Like that, I see Gabe Vincent being a guy that a bad team throws a bunch of money at, like the Magic or somebody just signs Gabe Vincent on a decent sized contract. Like those are the guys that happens to. Oladipo right now is in a weird spot that I just feel like there's a possibility they can get him back on a decent deal. But there has to be, depending on who they have around them on this team, there has to be a certified role for him. Like it felt like he was the one player on this team this year that they didn't know what role he was. Sometimes he was a role player. Sometimes he's the guy in Game 7 of the fourth quarter of Game 7 where he has the ball in his hands more than Jimmy Butler, which is just a very weird development last night, by the way. So I think that's the big thing. Like in terms of contract right now at this moment, I'm honestly not sure what that's going to look like. But if they were to bring him back, I think the key there is they have to find a role from him immediately. And I guess playing close to 82 games on regular season would probably help.
Well, listen, this has been wonderful, and I can't thank you enough for your awesome coverage all season long. And the coverage doesn't stop. I mean, I know Brady is going to be all in on the offseason, and I think this is one of those off seasons where Heat fans are going to be especially interested to see what happens because I think we all can agree, like we want to do something during this window for Jimmy Butler. Like I would hate to see Jimmy end his career without getting a ring. Like he's been so money. I mean, I'm sure Brady saw this stat. I might have even taken this from his Twitter for all I know, but I saw this stat last night after the game. You know, Jimmy, first Heat player since LeBron James in 2013 to have 8 games of 30 or more points in the postseason. And he did it in a smaller sample because that was a championship year for LeBron. Jimmy did it through just the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, just an incredible postseason that he had. We got to get this guy a ring. Yeah,
and he did it while being injured. Like I feel like that's the thing here where it comes down to. And he also didn't do it with superstars around him. Like people were questioning if Jimmy Butler himself was a superstar, not that he had superstars around him. So it's a totally different. He had this team on his back across this playoff run. And I said this last night as well that there's always these points, these seasons that are remembered in a certain way, maybe by a certain play, maybe by a certain player. This playoff run, this season is going to be remembered by Jimmy Butler and Jimmy Butler only. This entire season was in and out, depth and everything else. But this playoff run was just Jimmy Butler takeover mode, no matter the circumstance, no matter if he was injured, no matter if he was another guy was stepping up and he was closing late, no matter if he was scoring 40, I think 3 to 4 times in this playoff run. Like this season is going to be remembered for that. And I think that's where it kicks into offseason mode and how you build this team. Like, this is Jimmy Butler's team. The goal is to get him a ring and this organization a ring. And I think now, like, this is go time. Like, now what you've seen what he can do once again and come up short, like, now it's time to really push him over the edge.
So everyone, you can direct your offseason questions to Brady Hawk on Twitter at Brady Hawk 305. I'm sure you're all over the network and all over the website this week as well. Let people know what you have cooking for the rest of the week.
Yeah, 5 on the floor, probably a bunch of off-season episodes coming up, which I didn't expect we'd be getting into this soon, to be honest. But and then at Brady Hawk 305, and then maybe some Brady breakdowns, and I don't know what because no more film to dissect, I guess.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. You can, I don't know. Do you think like with people, and I don't want to put extra work on your plate if you don't have to do it, but I kind of feel like people might be interested in you doing some breakdowns of the finals, even if the Heat aren't in it. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. Watching
about.
Boston celebrate on Miami's court, I don't know if they're too interested. that was a bad sign.
That's a good point. All right, Brady, thanks so much, man. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you for having me on.
It was awesome. See me. I'm trying to give this guy more work to do, like as if he doesn't do enough. Right? I'm like, Brady, you should also make breakdown videos for teams that you don't cover, just so I can keep you busy for no apparent reason. I don't know. I love giving other people assignments. I don't know if this is a confession or what, because I know people are going to blame me for last night after what I'm about to tell you, because this didn't hurt them in game 6. Okay. Game 6, I bet the Heat against the spread and they covered and won. Okay. So I decided, I looked at the odds yesterday, a couple of hours before tip off, and I saw Miami +3. And I thought, you know what? I think we're going to win the game. Even if we don't, I think it's going to be really close. And it was really close. Like, could be a 1 or a 2-point loss, or maybe we push. So I did lock in Miami +3 last night. I thought, hey, I didn't hurt them in game 6. I might have even helped them in game 6. Maybe the mush is no longer a thing for me. Maybe I'm good luck now. I'm not bad luck. So I did bet Miami +3, and they lost the game by 4 points. Vegas is so good at this, man. Vegas is so good. I didn't touch the over-under, but I did notice also the over-under, I think, was 198, and the total points scored was 196. So they were really close. So they had an over-under that was 2 points off, a spread that was 1 point off. They're so good at this, man. That's why they build those castles of hotels that they have out there. And listen, I want full disclosure. You guys know I'm honest with you, if nothing else. I don't try to hide. When I do something wrong and I create bad luck, I don't hide it. I come out and tell you guys. And yeah, LOL. It's all my fault that we lost. But you know what? Even if I didn't win that bet last night, I did have a hell of a time placing that bet. And it's so easy to do. It's so convenient to do at America's favorite sports book, the official sports book of Donno Daily. That's betus.com. I do win wagers also every now and then, just so you guys know. I don't lose every single time. In fact, I win more than I lose at betus.com. You want to sign up today. This is a full-service online sports book, fully available in Florida. Yes, you can use all the features from the Sunshine State. Sign up at BetUS. You can bet on the finals. You can bet on the Stanley Cup playoffs. You can bet on college baseball. You can bet on international soccer. Well, a lot of the seasons have just come to an end. Champions League winner, but I've done this before. You can bet international friendlies. I do bet international friendlies. I like to bet on a lot of different games, guys. You can get all your action, money lines, spreads, parlays, props, live betting on all of it at betus.com. I was really bored on Saturday afternoon while the Champions League final was on. Real Madrid, they won the game 1-0. And in the 87th minute, they were up 1-0. And I pulled up the live odds, and it was Real Madrid, because you can bet during games, which is a really cool feature. I didn't place a bet pregame. When I saw Real Madrid up 1-0, 87th minute, I live bet Real Madrid at -450 odds, and I won. they held on to win. So free money in my pocket, man. You can do this at betus.com. And when you sign up, use our code and they're going to give you a big bonus. Use our code 5RSN125. That's 5RSN125. And they're going to give you a 125% sign up bonus. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. And friends, make sure you sign up at our official daily fantasy sports platform on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and that is Prize Picks. Oh, guys, with the finals games coming up, Stanley Cup playoffs, everything going on, it's you versus the numbers at Prize Picks. You simply select 2, 3, or 4 players and predict if they're going to go over or under their fantasy projections, and you win real money. You can win 10 times your money for getting 4 predictions correct. It's so easy. It's so fast to make your selections. It takes me less than 60 seconds to select a 4-player selection, and you can go cross-league and cross-sport. You can select players from all different sports and leagues on the same selection. Sign up today at the Prize Picks mobile app or prizepicks.com, and we have a code for this one as well, guys, and we have one of the best deals in the business here. Our code at Prize Picks is 5. You got to spell it out, FIVE. And they're going to match your first deposit 100% up to $100. Everybody's playing Prize Picks. If you're not, get on it. It is so much fun, and it's so easy. PrizePicks.com or the Prize Picks mobile app, code 5. Prize Picks truly is daily fantasy simplified. All right, let me throw out a few shout-outs here. I got to get back my, and actually, let me mention this. All sincerity, because I didn't mention this at the top of the show. I hope everyone is having a wonderful Memorial Day, because this is a holiday that should mean a lot to everyone who lives in the United States of America, enjoys the freedoms we enjoy. We need to honor those who gave their lives for our country and for our freedom and for our way of life. So if anybody watching this, if you have relatives, if you had someone close to you that died serving the United States of America, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And thank you to everyone watching this who has served, because you guys are awesome. You guys are superheroes. And I want to make sure, and I hope everyone has had a good day. If you had the day off today, even if you didn't, you spent some time with your family, did some grilling, although the weather's been kind of shaky today, but we've had some moments of sunshine. So hopefully you guys got some grilling done. And, I hope everyone is having a wonderful Memorial Day. Thank you so much to everyone who has served. But since it is, my kid's been home all day. He's been driving me crazy. My mom is here watching him because my wife's working. He's driving my mom crazy. So, bro, I got to get back to my hyperactive 4-year-old. So, let me just say to everyone who has stopped in today, I don't have time to shout you guys out one by one, and the live chat has been lit today. We did get a super chat today. Let me see if I can find that to shout out the super chat from Miami Corey. Thank you so much. And guys, if you're ever moved to leave us a donation to the channel, super chat, you can hit it up. It's not mandatory. You don't have to leave a donation to use the live chat. The live chat is open, but if you are feeling generous and you want to help the channel financially, you can do that as well with the super chat. So thank you guys so much for making this episode a part of your day. And I wanted to make sure to get in an episode today, because I will not be getting in an episode tomorrow on this platform. I'm filling in on radio tomorrow for Hawk and Crowder. So you guys can hear me for 4 hours tomorrow on 560 WQAM and simulcast on 790 The Ticket. I will also be doing Locked On Canes in the morning. So for those of you, if you're in here, if you're a big Miami Hurricanes football fan, I hope you guys have subscribed to the podcast that I do. Audio available on all the platforms and video available on YouTube. We have a lot of fun talking Hurricanes football on Locked On Canes. So make sure you subscribe there and check me out there as well. So I will have Locked On Canes in the morning. I will have Hawk and Crowder for 4 hours in the afternoon. I will be back here on Wednesday. So until then, hope you guys have a wonderful Memorial Day. We will talk to you next time on another episode of Donno Daily on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Hold on, I'm looking for the outro. I'm always like scrambling. All right, now I am ready to say goodbye.